She's famous for her feats as an Olympian at the Salt Lake Winter Games. Tonight, the former speed skater accused of defrauding the government of millions of dollars faces a federal jury.
We're drying out and temperatures are on the rise. What takes up for UV index and air quality, plus extreme heat for the holiday weekend.
More Utahns are becoming homeless for the first time, according to a report released by the state earlier today. What is the cause and what solutions are being looked at to curb the problem?
The Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action, and with the ruling, complex consequences.
We are still a long time away from a fair society.
But here in Utah, not much will change. We'll show you why.
A chair for every style of hair. One of Salt Lake City's newest salons is not just a place for haircuts, but a safe space too.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Evans.
And I'm Kelly Chapman. Tonight, we have an update to a story the Fox 13 News investigative team has been tracking for years now.
A federal jury has found this woman, former Olympic speed skater Allison Baver, guilty on 4 charges, including money laundering, contempt, and making false statements about her movie company to receive a federal loan.
Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbets was in federal court today for this long-anticipated verdict.
She saw the camera, was stoic, and eventually smiled after being found guilty on 4 federal charges. Allison Baver, the former Olympic speed skater, chose not to talk about the verdict.
Actually, I was in the Olympics for speed skating.
What was it like being followed around by a camera?
It was great.
During the pandemic, Baver received a $10 million loan from the federal government for her production company, Allison Baver Entertainment. She claimed to have 430 employees and a monthly payroll of $4.7 million. Prosecutors say that was not true.
Allison Baver Entertainment had 0 employees and no monthly payroll. We're very pleased with the verdict.
Baver will remain out of custody until her sentencing, which is scheduled for October 30th. Prosecutors say it's too early to say how much time behind bars she could face, but they are glad to have taken back most of the taxpayer money Baver received.
So $9.5 million was seized and effectively held, protected, pending resolution of the case. And so that will be subject to forfeiture, meaning return to the United States. We were able to protect those funds and try to return them to the government.
The United States Attorney's Office is committed to aggressively prosecuting people who abuse the COVID relief programs.
Fox 13 has been tracking the case since before Baver was indicted. Last year, she filed a lawsuit against Fox 13 for defamation and invasion of privacy, but a judge dismissed that suit last month. Reporting in Salt Lake City, Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
We are following developing news in Midvale tonight, where a 3-year-old boy is dead after drowning in a pool.
It happened yesterday afternoon at an apartment complex at 8095 South Saguini Drive. That's off Bingham Junction Boulevard. Unified Police tell us the boy got out of his family's apartment and wandered to the complex swimming pool. The gate had been propped open by maintenance workers, which was out of view of the pool area. The boy was found 15 minutes later, and despite efforts to revive him, he passed away at the hospital.
A lot of things went wrong for this to happen, and at no one's really fault, given that, as we all know, anybody who's a parent knows that little kids are able to do these things and they want to get outside, and there's that beautiful swimming pool just waiting there on a hot summer day.
A GoFundMe page has been set up to help the boy's family with funeral expenses. We have a link to it at fox13now.com.
One man is in jail accused of fatally shooting a 50-year-old man in West Haven overnight. 40-year-old Dallas Martineau was booked into the Weber County Jail on suspicion of murder. Arresting documents say he confessed to the shooting, which happened near 4300 West, 4700 South in West Haven at about 11 p.m. Deputies found the victim unresponsive when they arrived. He was later pronounced dead at a local hospital. Martineau did not give a motive when speaking with investigators, but said he waited outside the victim's home for him to come outside, and then he shot him.
Shortly after 8 last night, a SWAT team surrounded a house in Rose Park to help arrest a domestic violence suspect. When officers arrived near 700 North Sonata Street, they could hear arguing inside the house. They helped to get a 51-year-old woman out who had serious injuries to her face. The man, identified as 51-year-old Thorvald Eldridge, refused to come out until the SWAT team arrived. Eldridge was booked into the Salt Lake County Jail on suspicion of felony aggravated assault.
More Utahns are becoming homeless for the first time. That data comes from the Utah Office of Homeless Services annual report.
Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold spoke with the state homeless coordinator about solutions.
Our focus areas are in addiction, mental health, and homelessness.
Kathy Bray has been the president and CEO with Volunteers of America for the past 15 years.
We served about 6,000 homeless individuals in Salt Lake County as a system,
as well as an additional 2,400 people last fiscal year through their street outreach teams.
The pandemic assistance went away. There were a number of individuals who were in a position where they didn't know how they were going to make their rent payment. Some of those individuals may become homeless.
The Utah Office of Homeless Services released their annual data report on Thursday. That report showed that in the last fiscal year, the number of Utahns experiencing homelessness for the first time reached more than 8,600 people, an increase of 821 individuals from the previous year. The point-in-time count, which was done back in January and tallies the number of people in shelters or unsheltered, showed a nearly 4% increase in the amount of people experiencing homelessness compared to the previous year. The solution to those rising numbers, Wayne Niederhauser, the state homeless coordinator, tells me in one word: housing.
Been working closely with the legislature, and they have seen fit to appropriate some significant funds to our office to administer deeply affordable housing grants and attainable housing grants that will produce more housing.
Niederhauser says they were awarded $55 million from the Utah legislature in 2022 and another $50 million this year to put toward deeply affordable housing.
I'll give you an example of one of those that we funded last year is the Point at Fair Park. It's permanent housing or long-term housing for those individuals. And it's much needed.
Niederhauser also spoke about strides that have been made to protect those experiencing homelessness as we head into the warm summer months.
I know that St. George Switch Point, who runs the shelter there, has a plan for this summer. It's called Code Red, and they're ramping up for those very hot days that they experience. And hydration is the biggest issue.
It's time to ask the community for help with water donations and sunscreen and things that are really practical.
In Salt Lake, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
And it's gonna get hot and hotter in the days ahead.
In fact, dangerously hot, Allison.
That's right. Our hottest temperatures so far this season arriving 4th of July weekend into Monday and Tuesday. Even some isolated storm chances for right now at 77 degrees in Salt Lake, 76 in Ogden, 72 in Provo. Still a bit gusty in St. George and Price right now, where it's about 25 miles per hour. But we are starting to see clearing here across northern Utah. Still partly cloudy, enough to make for a gorgeous sunset. Few showers just west of Kanash and north of Beaver into western Utah towards Milford. And then across southern Utah, we are going to start to see those things clearing out. The clouds, less of those into tomorrow. But speaking of clouds, we had some gorgeous cloud formations today. We'll go ahead and we'll break that all down for you coming up later in the hour. I'll let you know exactly what you're looking at in the sky today because it was a pretty beautiful scene. For Salt Lake City, we'll drop close to 60 degrees into tomorrow morning, mostly clear. A lot of sunshine in the forecast for your Saturday and Sunday here across the state, so UV index will become a concern even into tomorrow. And also air quality is going to get a little bit worse as we head into this holiday weekend. But for Friday morning, we'll be about 50 to 65 degrees here across the state. And then your main weather headlines, isolated storm chances today, those are dying down. Air quality, potentially a problem for some of you this weekend. And then we do have a lot of heat on the way for the holiday. More on that coming up.
What's the impact of the U.S. Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling on Utah's colleges and universities?
As we wrap up Pride Month, we profile a Salt Lake hair salon that does more than help people look their best.
Inclusivity means everyone.
We'll take you inside and introduce you to the hairstylist behind it all.
Decisions were made with Jazz players Jordan Clarkson and Kelly Olynyk that will affect the Jazz roster next season.
A 61-year-old woman from Indiana has died at Canyonlands National Park in southern Utah. A Park News release says rangers were notified of an unresponsive female yesterday. She was in the Willow Flat Campground, which is in the Island in the Sky section of the park. Grand and San Juan County Sheriff's deputies and paramedics also responded to the scene. An investigation is underway to determine the manner and cause of death. The woman's next of kin have been notified.
The Narrows in Zion National Park are back open, but maybe not for long. Due to record snowfall creating dangerously high runoff, the popular trail has been closed for the second longest time in park history. The trail follows the Virgin River through the Red Slot Canyon that it's named for and has been closed since April 8th. The monsoon season is a month away, so now might be a good time to go hike the Narrows if you want to do that. America's Freedom Festival at Provo is known for the Grand Parade on the 4th of July and Stadium of Fire this Saturday night.
Yeah, it's up and coming, but tonight was the Freedom Awards Gala. The honorees, the late Ken Potts, who was one of the last two survivors of the USS Arizona, which was sunk in Pearl Harbor. He recently celebrated his 102nd birthday and then passed away a week later. Also tonight honored John Jack Moran. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. He helped liberate a Nazi concentration camp. Of 33 men in his platoon, he was one of only 2 who came back from war.
Marine veteran William Ken Luttrell was in the first wave of the amphibious assault on Iwo Jima and was hit by shrapnel. He went through 9 surgeries in 4 different hospitals. And George Ciampa was assigned to grave registration. He had the solemn responsibility of sorting bodies, organizing the deceased's belongings, and burying them in temporary cemeteries in France, Belgium, and Germany.
Tonight's Freedom Awards Gala is one of more than 30 events America's Freedom Festival at Provo hosts each and every year, but perhaps tonight's was the most touching. I stopped by the Freedom Festival offices this week and talked with Executive Director Jim Evans. He tells me there is nothing like hearing the war stories of the sacrifices our military gave to keep our country free.
Probably one of my favorite events is the Freedom Gala that we do this Thursday, where we honor patriots. For example, this year honoring some of our World War II vets. It helps me realize I leave that event every day, every time we have that every year, with a sense of why I have the freedoms I have.
Over 600 people attended tonight's Freedom Awards Gala.
Fox 13 News will be covering the Freedom Festival this holiday weekend. We'll be at Stadium of Fire on Saturday night, the Colonial Heritage Festival on Monday, and the 4th of July Grand Parade on Tuesday. We hope to see you at all of these great community events.
It is not just hair. Hair really can be an identity, but many people in the LGBTQ+ community have difficulty finding a stylist that understands their self-expression.
Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree shows us how a new Salt Lake City hair salon is giving everyone a look to love.
They say, I just want a haircut. That's all it is.
Joshua Lucero's vision for Lucero Hair and Wellness is an inclusive place where anyone can get a haircut.
I have clients who have short hair and they're women, and men who have long hair. And so I don't believe that there's gendered haircutting. I believe it's based off of the length.
He opened the salon in February, days after Senate Bill 16 was signed into law, banning gender-affirming surgery for minors.
Our concept was giving gender-affirming haircuts.
Aside from offering haircuts and shaves, Lucero is also a safe space for anyone who needs somewhere to go.
Just come and hang out. You don't have to come get a service if you just want somewhere safe to be.
Lucero says although he's faced some hate, He feels the love from the community is proof of how much pride Salt Lake City truly has.
Our goal is to be able to give services to anyone who has hair. That's the whole concept. Inclusivity means everyone.
In Salt Lake City, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, it's been a nice warm day today, but clouds out there, and we're dealing with smoke too, wildfire smoke.
Parts of the country, us here in Utah, we're doing really good, but it continues to be a major, major problem for the eastern half of the country from these Canadian wildfires. So us here in Utah, our air quality concern this weekend will be our ozone. That is looking like we're going to get to the orange level on Saturday. More on that in a second. I do want to show you where the worst air quality is right now in the country. So take a look at your screen right now. It was really, really bad in Chicago 2 days ago, in St. Louis yesterday. Now moving a little further east, up still into the northeastern part of the country. Us here out west, we're the ones normally dealing with that bad wildfire smoke, but we really have had a good streak. As far as our air quality goes, our problems coming into Friday and Saturday continues to be ozone. So the forecast for tomorrow is moderate, just like today. For Saturday, the forecast is for orange, unhealthy for sensitive groups, along with mandatory action. Salt Lake City right now, 77. The sun has just set. Beautiful day today. As Bob also mentioned, the cloud cover today. We're going to break down what types of clouds that we saw earlier today here across the state, because we really got some beautiful, unique clouds today that really were showing off midday. So we'll have more on that coming up in a little bit. Some isolated storms still coming down right now, mainly near Beaver, Utah. Air quality gets a little bit worse this weekend. And then the main weather headline and top line heading into the holiday weekend, a lot of heat. Our biggest heat wave, our hottest heat wave so far this summer on the way. And it's going to be on a weekend where a lot of people are outdoors and a lot of people are camping. Tomorrow morning drive, sunny and 60s. Tomorrow evening into the mid 80s with sunshine. We did have some thunderstorms through Utah County earlier this afternoon, I should say, but we're starting to get a little bit of clearing in the cloud cover up towards the Idaho border into central and southern Utah. Right near Beaver, Utah, a little bit of rain currently. That's pretty much it. Over towards Milford, a little bit of rain, but things are dying down. Precipitation chances unlikely for Salt Lake, Provo, and Ogden through the overnight hours. Friday morning, 6 a.m., 50s and low 60s here across the Beehive State. Temperatures tomorrow rising into the 80s, so it's going to be a warm day tomorrow, but with moderate air quality. UV index will be very high for tomorrow, so if you get outside early in the day, that'll be great. Still the chance into northeastern Utah for a few stray showers popping up, but really heading into a much drier trend here across the region. A little bit of wind tomorrow, but that's not going to be as big of a concern as it has been the last couple of days. A lot of heat, though, heading into Sunday, Monday, and 4th of July. Potentially hitting our first triple-digit day in Salt Lake on Monday. For St. George, 100 tomorrow, close to 105 to 110 Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and on the 4th of July, keeping you hot through the entire 7-day forecast. And for Salt Lake, 86 degrees for tomorrow, 92 on Saturday, 96 on Sunday. We're going to keep you around 90 to 95 for much of the forecast, a couple of days, maybe even getting close to that century mark like on Monday. We'll talk more about the chance for some isolated storms early next week coming up in just a bit. We'll see you after the break.
Utah Republican congressional candidate Becky Edwards says she has submitted the signatures necessary to get a spot on the Republican primary ballot in the upcoming special election. Edwards submitted a little more than 7,000 signatures required by law from the 2nd Congressional District. She says volunteers helped her do it.
It's an amazing effort, and it speaks to the number of people who are in our tribe, our movement of people across the state who are aligning over a shared vision for brighter days for the people of Utah. It's so exciting. I'm so grateful.
If those signatures are verified by the state elections office, she will be on the Republican primary ballot against Celeste Malloy, who won at Saturday's Utah GOP convention.
Driving while impaired is on the increase here in Utah. The Department of Public Safety says it has observed a significant increase in DUI stops and arrests. That is despite Utah having the toughest drunk driving law in the nation. Utah's blood alcohol level for a DUI is 0.05. The Utah Highway Patrol says it can't explain the reason for increased DUI stops and arrests, but they say it doesn't matter.
The average is 0.14 BAC, that breath alcohol content or blood alcohol content. And so that's almost 3 times the limit. And so while we've gone from a 0.08 down to a 0.05, I don't think that is the reason for the increased DUI. I think that there is definitely more of an emphasis to remove those impaired drivers off the road. But at the same time, too, we want to make sure that 0.05 is the deterrent to get drivers to think and say, okay, on the front end, I don't want to operate this vehicle.
With the Independence Day holiday, police will be out enforcing DUI laws.
Affirmative action is no more. I'll explain how this affects universities and colleges here in Utah.
With affirmative action gone, we look at which Utah students are going to those highly selective schools and what kind of admissions decisions the numbers show.
A bear sighting on a popular Park City trail. Hear from the man who was within 20 feet of it.
Another significant investment coming from Delta Airlines to the Beehive State. Coming up, we'll tell you who that will impact and what it will be.
There's a golfer with local ties who's tied for the lead on the PGA Tour, and it may not be the golfer you're thinking of.
We cannot let the decision be a permanent setback for the country. We need to keep an open door of opportunities. We need to remember that diversity is our strength.
A divided U.S. Supreme Court today struck down race-based affirmative action related to college admissions, forcing schools to rewrite their policies and find other ways to achieve diverse student bodies.
Now, applicants can still discuss in their essay how their race has impacted their life, but the school may not specifically use race as a positive or negative factor.
Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser spoke with professors and university presidents about what this means for the future of higher education. She begins our team coverage.
Admissions offices across the country are scrambling. Now the Supreme Court has struck down race-based affirmative action.
There is language in this opinion that does recognize that racialized experiences are relevant. Race is not relevant. So it's a difficult thing to parse.
Erica George, professor at the University of Utah's Law School, put it like this: checking a box identifying your race on an application has no sway, but writing and explaining how it has impacted your life still could.
And Justice Roberts says time is now and time's up. And the dissent suggests that we are still a long time away from a fair society or fair admissions.
It's important to note that the Supreme Court's case included both Harvard and the University of North Carolina, which means this ruling applies to public institutions like the U and private ones here like Westminster University.
My initial reaction was, wow, this is complicated and it's going to take a while to figure out exactly what the court is asking us to do.
President Bethany Dobkin says Westminster University does not practice affirmative action.
It will take a while to unpack exactly what it means for us. We know that it doesn't stand in the way of our commitment to diversity and experience for all of our students.
For high schoolers who are counting on it to help with college applications, George has this advice.
I think it puts them in a position of being able to explain how race has impacted their life, whatever race they may be. Be the holistic person that you are and present yourself as such.
In Salt Lake City, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
So how does today's ruling affect Utah?
Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow explains from the University of Utah.
The U.S. Supreme Court's ruling is expected to have little to no impact on Utah's colleges and universities. Why? Because they don't do affirmative action. They certainly do recruit and encourage students from racial and ethnic minorities to apply to attend school, but there's no hard number. The Utah System of Higher Education, which oversees all of the state's public colleges and universities, tells Fox 13 News, while the recent decision by the Supreme Court to strike down affirmative action policies may be causing concern among students and families throughout the nation, it is important to note that this ruling will not impact admissions at public colleges and universities in Utah. Unlike some other institutions across the country, Utah public colleges and universities do not consider an applicant's race or ethnicity when making admissions decisions. Though we are still assessing the broader impacts, if any, the court's ruling may have on our institutions, the Utah System of Higher Education remains dedicated to creating welcoming and inclusive environments that encourage and celebrate the unique backgrounds of every student. Utah State University says today's decision does not affect our admissions practices, as race is not a factor in decisions. As a land-grant university, USU is committed to increasing access and opportunity for all Utahns to attend our institution, and will continue our efforts to build a campus community that supports and reflects this mission. In an FAQ on its website, the University of Utah says race is not a factor in its acceptance process, and that the U accepts students based on their demonstrated achievements and indications of their likeliness to academically succeed. Asked if the Supreme Court rules against race-conscious admissions policies, how does that impact the U? The university says if the court only forbids race-conscious admissions policies, it will have no impact on the U. Now, the U of U does publish data points showing an increase in minority students attending over the past decade from 15 to 26%. The university says that is on par with high school populations in the state. At the University of Utah, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
As Ben just reported, Utah's colleges and universities will not need to change their admission policies, but as you very well know, Utah students just don't go to Utah schools.
With an in-depth look at which Utah students go to college and where they go, here's Fox 13 News anchor Max Roth.
The National Center for Education Statistics conducted a huge survey between 2012 and 2017 to follow American high school students to college. Now today, that information gave me a window into how many students go to places where affirmative action may have been a factor in admissions decisions. Utah's public schools have close to 700,000 students. Almost 3/4 are white. More than 17% are Hispanic or Latino. But Hispanics or Latinos only represented 8% of Utah college-bound seniors from 2012 to 2017. White students went to college above their percentage of the population, and Asian students were the most likely population to go to college. In a giant survey, there was not enough response to say how many Pacific Islanders and American Indians went to college from Utah. Most Utah students stay in Utah. Just 13% head out of state for colleges. 38% of Utah students getting education past high school go to vocational or two-year schools. Another 26% attend schools with open admission policies. 22% go to moderately selective schools, and 12% to very selective programs. Those are the programs most likely to have used affirmative action policies. But again, it's white and Asian Utahns most likely to go to very or moderately selective schools. 1.7% of Utah students are Asian, but they make up 7% of students going to selective schools. And white students, at 74% of the population, represent 81% of Utah students headed to selective schools. In the big picture, the Utah communities of white and Asian Americans have more than their share of slots in selective schools. But the debate happens when students on the edge of admission lose a spot because a college considers race. That is a deep question about balancing historical and societal inequities and individual opportunity. In studio, Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Now, we want to know how you feel about the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action. Do you agree with taking it out of college admissions? To weigh in, scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you to fox13now.com/voice. The results of this non-scientific poll are in real time, and you can see at this point 81% of those taking part in this poll agree that the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action was correct.
Oh, just changed, 79% now.
79%.
Well, coming up, Delta has landed on Salt Lake City for its first major pilot training facility outside of Atlanta. What that means for pilots and Utah's economy.
And a couple of bikers get a surprise along a popular Park City trail. One shares his experience on why he says he did everything wrong when he came face to face with a bear.
Welcome back, everyone. Listen to this. Mountain bikers were surprised when they saw a bear on a popular Park City trail on Monday afternoon.
My goodness. One biker who was about 20 feet away from the bear says it wasn't aggressive, but he admits to Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule he did all the wrong things.
We obviously live in a mountain town, and a bear is definitely next level for a scare thing.
A bear is probably not something you want or expect to see on your daily trail ride, but it's what Park City mountain biker Jim Oselier saw while riding on Jenny's Trail Monday afternoon.
I just was doing a little traverse around a switchback, and I heard a noise behind me, and I thought, well, heck, what is that? Maybe it's a sweet little deer. And I stopped and looked over my shoulder, and no, it was a bear. And so we were like eyeball to eyeball.
The word Oselier used to describe the first minute of his mountain encounter: scary.
He came out of the trees and whatnot, and then I was into a ski run, basically in a clearing, and I almost crashed many times because I looked over my shoulder, seeing how far he was following me. But he stopped on the trail.
Oselier says he's not the only one on the trail that saw the bear.
I got up to this landing where a lot of people stopped for a rest and whatnot, and I stayed there, and then sure enough I saw a bunch of other bikers come up, and we all were chatting about what we saw.
In Utah, we actually only have one species of bear. We have black bears in Utah, but it can be confusing because black bears are not always black. So they can actually be black, brown, and cinnamon colored.
Faith Heat and Jolly with the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources says the mountains we recreate in are home to black bears. So it's important to know what to do if you ever cross paths with one.
For black bears, you just kind of stand your ground, you stay calm, and then give the bear a chance to leave. So don't run away, don't climb a tree. They're really fast. They can run up to 35 miles an hour.
Recalling Monday's encounter, Oselier says he did all the wrong things.
Basically rode off real dramatic like, and did not do the proper thing. I just completely panicked.
In Park City, Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, temperatures today made it to 84 degrees for a high. Tomorrow, another day in the 80s before we really ramp up for the holiday weekend. More on that, and if we have any more storms in the forecast coming up.
Big decisions were made on the futures of Jordan Clarkson and Kelly Olynyk with the Utah Jazz. And the quarterfinals are set at the Utah State Amateur. After some great matches today in the round of 16, the highlights are on the way.
Delta Airlines has landed on Salt Lake City for its first major pilot training facility other than the one they have in Atlanta.
Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson shows us how the 47,000 square foot facility will benefit West Coast pilots and boost Utah's economy.
He would send me postcards from whatever country he was in at that time.
Ever since he was a child, TJ Bates says he wanted to be a Delta pilot like his father.
And once I stepped foot in the cockpit of an airplane the first time and took off and felt the ground beneath me, and it felt like I was soaring like a bird.
To become a pilot for an airline company like Delta, pilots have to undergo more than 1,500 hours of training.
The only training center at Delta Airlines is in Atlanta. That requires a couple days of travel to and from to get to our training that we have to do once, sometimes twice a calendar year.
In 2 years, pilots will be able to get their training done close to family and home, right here on Wright Brothers Drive.
1, 2, 3. This is the biggest investment we've made in our training infrastructure in over 2 decades.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall says she thinks the training center is part of another important deal with Delta, a partnership which she says helps the state's economy fly to new heights.
Delta Airlines connects us to a global network so that we can share what so many of us already know, which is that Salt Lake City and the surrounding region is one of the best places in the world to visit and certainly an even better place to call home.
Bates says he's excited to see the next chapter of the airline's major investment into the Beehive State.
This allows the pilots at Delta to shorten that footprint. It makes the pilots more available for the flying. They don't have to use those travel days. It also signifies the importance of the Utah and the Delta relationship.
In Salt Lake City, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
We had some interesting clouds in the sky today.
Yeah, really cool looking. Utah's Weather Authority meteorologist Allison Krogan will break it down for us. Allison, these pictures were coming in from varied cities throughout the state.
That's right. So you can see these thunderstorm clouds from several miles and miles and miles away. So they were visible all along the Wasatch Front today. So these towering vertical clouds. And so these cumulus clouds that exhibit significant vertical development, but they're not yet a thunderstorm, are called cumulus congestus or a towering cumulus. But many of these did develop into cumulonimbus clouds today, and that is what happens when there's enough atmospheric instability, moisture, and lift all present, and then a strong updraft can develop that into this cloud, leading into a mature, deep cumulonimbus cloud. Now I want to quickly talk about thunderheads, anvils. When you see a flat top on top of a thunderstorm, the same way that works would be if you were to boil a pot of water in your kitchen, all right, and then you take the lid off of that pot. The steam would all rise up to the ceiling, right? And then the ceiling would block it, so it would have to spread out near the ceiling. Same thing happens with these thunderstorms. They reach a certain part in the atmosphere and they can't continue to grow, so that's why they end up spreading out. So I have a couple of theories on why today's clouds were so impressive. One, they were extremely symmetrical, which made them very gorgeous and photogenic. Number two, it happened right with our midday sun, so they were backlit. So that helped them really pop against the blue sky. And also, if you are very fortunate someday, you'll see these cumulonimbus clouds developing right around sunset. And when you have a backlit sunset, these clouds can appear to be pink or orange or whatever cloud color we're going to see from that sunset that night. So that is also quite a treat. But today, gorgeous pictures coming in from all along the Wasatch Front. Thank you to everybody who shared those pictures in our Facebook group, Utah's Weather Authority. For tomorrow, our UV index is very high, and we're going to have a lot of heat as we head into the weekend. So with our ozone problems here in the summer, it's typically worse in the afternoon. So with our very hot forecast, temperature-wise, getting out early in the day will be your best bet. That will also help with your UV index and also your air quality concerns into the next few days. So Friday into Saturday, things are going to get a little bit worse come this weekend. Mandatory action on Saturday and the orange level, unhealthy for sensitive groups. Today we did have a few thunderstorms here across northern Utah. We're really starting to see things clearing out. Still a little bit of activity out towards Milford and Beaver, but that will also be dying down here over the next few hours. Come tomorrow morning, 50s and 60s for many of you. Temperatures rising tomorrow, maybe just a little bit hotter than today by a few degrees. And then it's really going to start getting quite a bit warmer heading into Saturday and Sunday. Also a low chance for some isolated storms Monday night and Tuesday for the Ogden area. Very low isolated chances, but a possibility nonetheless. For Provo, Monday night and Tuesday, some isolated storms. And for St. George, you're probably going to have a hot and dry 7-day forecast. St. George year-round, that century mark, 105 to 110 even Saturday through the 4th of July on Tuesday. So extreme heat, big concerns there, especially for vulnerable populations like children and the elderly and pets. Cars are going to become very deadly as we head into this weekend forecast in just a matter of minutes. We're going to be close to maybe even our first triple-digit day on Monday here in Salt Lake. So 92 on Saturday, 96 on Sunday, 99 on Monday, 94 for the 4th of July. We'll keep you in the 90s through the rest of the 7-day forecast after we get to Saturday.
Jordan Clarkson's run with the Utah Jazz continues. Sarah Todd of the Deseret News reported that Clarkson will pick up his player option to remain with the Jazz next season. Clarkson started 61 games last season and averaged career high with 21 points and 4.5 assists per game. The 31-year-old could have opted out of the final year of his contract worth $14.2 million and become a free agent, but instead he opted in to stay with the Jazz. Also reported that the Jazz will fully guarantee the contract of Kelly Olynyk. They will pay him $12.2 million next season. That leaves the Jazz around $14 million in available cap space. First round picks Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh missed the first practice today with the Jazz Summer League team. They're both day-to-day as they ease back from injuries. Second-year guard Ochai Agbaji will play this summer, and he'll be one of the leaders on the team.
Step into that leadership or that leader role and just being a point guard and facilitator and just being all around aggressive in my game and looking for other guys and keeping everybody in the game. So
25 shots a night?
Something like that. Something like that. I don't know. That's a lot, but yeah, I'm just gonna be aggressive.
Real Salt Lake announced the signing of three-time Colombian champion Nilson Palacios. The 22-year-old defensive midfielder has signed through the 2026 season with team options for 27 and 28. He's eligible to play as soon as July 8th against Orlando. The 125th Utah State Amateur played the round of 32 and 16 today at the Country Club. This is former Dixie State golfer Cameron Crawford, birdie at number 2. He beat Tanner Telford 1 up to advance. Former Utah Ute and Highland Ram Oscar Maxfield 2 up on former champion Martin Leone after his birdie at 7, but Leone won the match 1 up. Here's last year's runner-up Simone Kwan rolls in the birdie at number 7. Kwan beat Leo Torres 4 and 3 to advance. It took 22 holes to determine the winner between Josh Howe and Brandon Robinson. Howe won the 9th hole here and the 22nd hole to advance to the quarterfinals, along with David Lichty, Elijah Turner, Kenny Palmer, and Dan Horner. First round of the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit. This is former BYU star Peter Quest. Chips it in for birdie on the 5th hole. He's tied for the lead. He Monday qualified. Now he's tied for the lead at 8 under par after an open around 64. Tony Finau is the defending champion. He had an up and down day. This is a highlight for sure. Great shot on the par 3 15th. Led to a birdie, but he's tied for 107th place at even par. Zach Blair is 2 over par, so they have some work to do tomorrow if they want to make the cut. But Quest qualified on Monday. Doesn't have status on the PGA Tour.
And
This
look
could
at him
be
now.
A life-changing
Oh, wow.
week.
You better believe I qualify.
Yeah, I'd say.
We wish him well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
We'll be right back. What do you say we do
5 more minutes? We got 5 more minutes to
Quickcast
do?
is coming up next. Don't you touch that dial.
Stick around.